Hi everybody, welcome to the volume event. I'm so excited to be with you guys today. I'm Cindy with Dare to be Artsy, and we're going to be sharing with you some of our new slimline dies and fun background dies. We're going to make some fun cards. So let's go ahead and get artsy. The first card we're going to do is going to use our leaf background die, our well wishes stamp set, and all these sentiments fit in this space, and our little birdie set, and the bird also fits in that same leaf. And the fancy framelits are going to be used to decorate the inside of the card. So we're going to just take some black cardstock. I cut it to 11 by 4¼ so it's just a standard A2 size card folded in half. I die cut our foil paper using the leaf background die, and the green piece is cut out using the outside frame that comes with the same set. So I don't want the green to be as bright as it is, so I'm using our totally black ink with a sponge dauber, and we're just going to knock the green down a little bit. And this is going to be set in the background behind the leaf die. So first I'm just using circular motions and going all the way around the outside to just give it a nice edge. And then I want some of the black to come into the center too, because when you put our die over the piece of paper, I want there to be some difference in color. I don't want it to all look the same, but don't cover the whole thing with the black. Now you can see how you can see a lot of variation in there. I think that's really pretty. So we're done with the black. Our black is a hybrid ink. It's really great for Copic markers. It won't bleed when you're coloring with alcohol markers. So let's go ahead and attach the green to the black base. And we're just going to center it. And then I'm using art glitter glue to put on the back of the foil paper. I like this glue because it dries clear. The outside edge of this die is 1/8 of an inch, so you could use a really skinny score tape as well. But all of the little details in the center of the die cut image, they're very delicate. So you have some teeny little swirls. So I like to dot a little bit of the glue in the tips of those little swirls so they don't get snagged on something. So I'm not covering the whole thing, just some of the more fragile pieces. And then as I set this down, some of the glue is showing, which is no big deal. Again, this glue is going to dry clear, but when I tap it down, I don't want to smear the glue on top of the foil because it will show if there's a little bit of glue on top of the foil. It kind of makes it dull, a little dull spot. So just be careful, let it dry on its own. The center of the leaf has its separate little die. So I could have cut out the center of the gold, but I just left it because I knew I was going to cover it. And I cut some different colored pieces of paper out, and then I used one of the sentiments from the Well Wishes set to stamp on the yellow leaf. And so you could put all 3 on there and just have a nice simple card using a sentiment. But I chose to go ahead and do the bird instead. So this is the little birdie, same shape from the little birdie stamp set. And I stamped it twice, and I colored in the little wing because this die set also has a wing with it. So I wanted to pop the wing up. So I cut that out. And then I'm going to go ahead and take some foam tape. And I love adding a little bit of extra dimension to the card. So I just popped that up. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some more foam tape on the bird. And I could just set it right there and be done with it and just set it in the center of that gold piece. But I also have these little extra pieces here. I thought it would be nice to create kind of a drop shadow for the bird. So I'm using the red piece, and you'll notice I had put a little bit of the black around the edge of that as well, just to kind of tie in the black background. And then I'm centering this on the gold piece. And we're just going to pop up the bird, again, leaving a nice little drop shadow behind him. Now you don't want just a black inside, so I'm using our fancy framelits and just two of the different sizes, and I'm going to attach those together. And I'm using the red because I think it was a nice tie-in to the red that's in the bird. So we're just layering that up, nice large space to write a sentiment on the inside. You could even stamp another little sentiment on the inside of this as well. Now I think that makes a really fun card, but we don't want to forget to put a sentiment on the outside. Just flew in to say hello. I used foam tape on this, and I think this just makes a nice final touch. We're going to snip it off, and this card is done. Now let me show you a couple more examples. This one is using paper piecing and the happy birthday from the well wishes set, and just flew in to say hello again with the bird. And then this is using the bird with our circle background die. This is another really popular die. And here it is as a shaker card in our double word thanks die. Now let's move on to the next card. We're going to be doing two more cards, and we're using our two different skunk stamp sets. So I just want to show you a few techniques. I'm using just 3 shades of gray, well, a black and then a really light gray and a medium gray. Because even though a skunk is typically black, if you colored the whole thing in solid black, you're going to lose all of the detail, and it's just going to look kind of like a big blob. So by using the gray, you're going to really define the skunk, and it's still going to look like a black skunk. So I go from the outside and brush in using little flicking motions. I'm using the lightest first to really saturate that space. I know some people like to start with the darkest. That I just typically like to start light. And I'm just filling all of this in. This light gray is going to really define the highlighted areas. Now we're going to take the medium gray, and I'm going to start from the outside, and I'm going to brush in where I think the darker the shadows are going to be. So down near the bottom and the outside and the back, and just brush inward. And it's okay to see some of those strokes. And make sure you get under his chin. And around the base of his arm. He's already starting to look rounder. And the back of his tail, and again, I'm just kind of doing the down on the lower side where it's going to be more of a dark shadow. I'm going to take just a little bit of black. I don't need very much of this at all. If I had just a really deep gray, I might have used that instead of the black. I just didn't have that color. So again, I'm going to brush in just a teeny bit. So you can already see him taking shape. A little bit in the tail, the base of the tail. A little bit on his cheeks coming from behind. Now I'm going to go back in with the medium, and I'm going to brush up a little bit more, grabbing some of that black and bringing it in, but again, not very much. You're going to just keep going back and forth between the different grays till you get the best look that you want. Keep using the dark on the back side of him. You'll notice we have the two different skunks here. The one on the left is from the Stinkin' Happy stamp set, and the one on the right is from the Feelin' Stinky stamp set. Now we're going in with that lightest gray and really blending the colors. This is C3. You just want to make sure you leave some of the areas pretty light to create the highlights, especially around his face because you don't want to lose the detail in his little smile. So we haven't even used the C00 yet. That's where we're just going to touch up a little bit on his stomach and stuff. But then we use C3, C5, and 100 black are the three main colors we used for the skunk. Then you'll go in with a little black on his nose and leaving a little bit of white for a highlight. Now these are the two stamps we use, and see the one die will match both stamp sets, Feeling Stinky and Stinkin' Happy. We're also going to use our Fancy Framelits die and the fun fold that goes with it to create our pop-up card. Now we're going to take an 8.5 by 5.5 piece of paper and just fold it in half. Use your bone folder to give it a nice crease. Now we're going to take a piece of paper that's 5.5 by 4.25. This is from our Bows and Blooms paper collection. You're going to notice the bows on the back. That coordinates with another one of our stamp sets called Bouquet for You that has 2 bouquets and a little bow. The die that cuts that is also going to cut those bows right out of the paper. Go ahead and position this piece of paper to the inside left panel. And this part you could cut the paper separately, but by positioning it all at once and cutting it together, you're going to make sure that those papers line up really well. So again, this is cut 4.25 by 5.5. We're going to score it at 2 1/16, or just score it in half. Now you're going to make a little pencil mark, the top and the bottom. Then you're going to line up your fun fold. The top and the bottom have a score line, and then the bump has the cut. So you're going to line that up with that pencil mark, tape it down. You don't want it to move when you're running through it your machine. Again, that score line is lining up, the score on the die is lining up with the score that you made. And then you're going to center it top to bottom. Run it through your machine. A lot of your die cutting machines are pretty narrow, so just make sure when you're putting it on your plate that it doesn't extend past your plate. Now you're just going to fold it back on itself. I could have moved that die slightly more to the center because when you flip it over, you'll notice on the left I'm a little bit short, but that's okay. Use your bone folder to give it a good crease. Now we're going to take our blue paper, and I've cut this slightly smaller because I wanted a little bit of a white border around it. So we're going to attach that to the inside right panel. The next piece is from our Bright Blooms paper collection. It's got the gingham on the back, a really fun floral on the front. And that's slightly smaller again because I just wanted to have this nice framed look. I love all those little flowers in that one. Now we're going to take a pink piece of paper, and I cut this from the Fancy Framelits, and you'll notice that it fits so nice inside the fun fold. We're going to pop it up with foam tape. I love that little extra bit of dimension. And then just hold the paper down so you can position it and center it. So you have a nice little white border around it, and it fits perfectly. Now here's our little skunk. You're going to position it so that you make sure his tail doesn't get snagged on the fun fold. I'm going to pop it up too. This skunk is from the Feelin' Stinky stamp set. It's got a little scarf. I went ahead and put the pink on there, tie it just to tie it all together. Now when you open it, it's kind of, he goes away and he's going to reveal this little sentiment piece where you can write a little note, and we've stamped the little flower and the little hearts on it. Then we're going to take this blue piece. It's one of the next layers up on the Fancy Framelits, and it's going to go on the right panel, but I need to center it. I want to make sure it's positioned just right so that you have this nice equal blue border around the front panel when it's closed. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and tape it to the left panel, so I know exactly where I want it. So you can just put a teeny little piece of tape on there just to hold it down temporarily. And then when you fold the card and you press it down, it's going to leave that blue piece right where you want it. Now here's our little sentiment. Sorry you're feeling so stinky. This is from one of the smaller layers, so when it's closed you definitely don't see it until you open the card. And I think that turned out really cute. Now you can do the fun fold a couple different ways. So I'm going to show you another example. When you flip the card over, it's different than this one. So here you've got, this is a shaker card. It's easier to see from the back. On the one on the right, the fun fold is cut with the bump facing outside the card. The one on the left, you flip the fun fold over and that little bump faces into the center of the card. So this one, when you open it, you see Skizzen's Greetings the whole time. With the skunk, when you flip it over, it's a surprise. You see that extra little panel on the inside, but the skunk disappears. Here's another example where the skunk is flipped and he turns backwards. So I just want you to see both sides. You can also make a little bib card. So if you fold it just differently, you'll see that you can actually make even another fun fold. Now this next card, we're using the Stinkin' Happy set, our curvy slimline dies. Here's a little cloud that I cut out ahead of time. And here's the other skunk. So you can see he has a little bit happier face. We went ahead and stamped and colored the little presents in too. We're using just an 8.5 by 7.5 piece of paper folded in half. The paper is from our So Much Fun paper collection. I've cut out the plaid with the border. And you'll notice I left the edge still on. I didn't trim it down because I want to wiggle this around. Then you'll notice on this die, there's a stitch on both sides of the paper, which is great because you don't have any scraps, because you take those apart and then you can use both hills however you want. And they both have that same look. So here's the plaid again. I left the edges because we're going to move it around because I'm not sure exactly where I want it to trim off. The scalloped edge I did on the blue, I'm going to put that in the back. And then you can layer those, like the plaid will actually match that light blue. So I'm just kind of positioning, see where I'm going to want them. There's our little sentiment, friends like you are few and far between. So once I kind of figure out where I want the layout, I'm going to start taping that down. And I don't even trim it off yet. I'm going to trim off a little bit of the extra, but not all the way to the edge. I still want the flexibility to move it around. This piece I'm doing flat against the base, so I'm not adding the foam tape to this piece. Again, just kind of position it. And you see that you can see the base below, but it's okay because I'm going to cover that up. When I cut the curve out, if you cut it one direction, it's going to match the scallop perfectly. But I used the other side and flipped it over, so it won't match exactly the same, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to tilt it anyway. I wanted it to be kind of close together on the left, but give you more blue on the right. And then the same with the white. I just kind of play with how I want that positioned. I'm going to put foam tape on the back of the white one because I want it to stand out a little bit more. But let's trim down those other layers first. I'm going to just take my scissors and trim off the extra. This part doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to cover it up with the white layer. Trim off the side. And you just want to make sure that the bottom left corner is covered. I think that's going to look good. I'm going to draw a pencil line here on the back so I know where to cut this down. I'm going to use my paper cutter to cut this white piece. Flip it over and then you can trim that off. Then we're going to pop the cloud up with some foam tape. What's great about these stamp sets, you can, pair them with the holiday paper. So you can, use this for a Christmas card, just put a different sentiment on it, or just a winter card. We'll add our little sentiment. This sentiment is using our wavy framelits. It also has a fun fold. And here's using those little fun shapes in a slimline card. I love that shape. So we're just going to pop up some of these little presents on here. This one I'm going to put adhesive on one part of the package, but foam tape on the top because it's going on both layers, the white and then the foam tape will attach to the plaid. I'm putting a little adhesive on his feet because they're going to be flat against the white, but the foam tape on the top because it's going to stand out. Then we're going to add one more little present. Put the foam tape on the back of this one too. And I think that turned out great. Let me show you a few more examples. This one is using the same dies and our same Snow Much Fun paper collection. We have the Chocolate Mousse, Skizzen's Greetings, Frosty Chalet, and Woolly Winter. And here's the backs. I just love these prints. This is our Skizzen's Greetings stamp set and the little dies that coordinate. This little skier comes right out of the paper. So the die that matches the stamp set also cuts the bears right out of the paper. So here we created a little slider card, and it's using the slider mechanism and the wavy frame from the wavy slimline borders. So we have two different border dies. And this one is using our crisp mousse stamp set, and the mousse that cuts the paper is going to cut the stamp set as well. Here's another one of our new slimline dies. It's the snowflakes. I love how it has the happy holidays and the little mittens. And here's another example, our brand new Toboggan Fun stamp set. We're using the waves, but we're also using this new set, and we're using the snowflakes in the background. Now I hope you've enjoyed these cards. Be sure and visit our website at daretobeartsy.com. If you spend $75, you're going to get $10 off. Use the code MEGA75. If you spend $35, you're going to get $5 off. Use MEGA35.